Welcome to Powerless to Powerful with Angela Bennett, a show that brings a sassy mix of transformative advice on health, relationships, love, career, and mindset shifting, together with some fun and laughter. Powerless to Powerful with Angela Bennett begins now. Today, we're honoured to welcome my special guest, Vanessa O'Green, or Coach V. She is a minister, a 3 times best-selling author, podcast host, and certified mindset transformation coach. Through Made New LLC, Vanessa empowers women to break free from limiting beliefs and embrace transformative mindset shifts. A sought-after speaker and workshop facilitator, she confronts generational curses, guiding individuals towards mental, emotional, and psychological prosperity. Wow. As the founder of Emerge Her Outreach Ministries, Vanessa fosters healing and elevation in women's lives. Currently pursuing her doctorate in biblical psychology, she's also the Baton Rouge City Chair for G100 Oneness and Wisdom. Vanessa's influence extends as a brand ambassador for the Black Family magazine and a 2022 leading lady of Louisiana. Don't miss her insights on her podcast, Transformative Talk with Coach V. Today we welcome Vanessa O'Green. Yay!
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
Your bio is just divine, and I'm so excited to dive into this. So, did you always walk with Jesus? My first question.
No, I did not.
Okay.
I remember being baptized at either like 5 or 6 years old. I remember that. We were not, consistent church goers. We didn't, not in the traditional sense. It wasn't really until I would really have to say like in my late 40s, going through my divorce, that is when I made the decision to recommit my life to Christ. There were like these little, you know, blotches here and there, but there was no consistency. And I can honestly say that. I had an amazing boss that I worked with that was literally like my first spiritual mother. And she really helped to, develop my faith and so going through the process of that divorce is like I remember a moment of literally just on my knees in my bedroom, and I was just like, okay, Lord, we're gonna do this your way. We're gonna do this your way from here on out, because clearly what I've been doing for the last, you know, or 30 something years is not working. So I made a decision about 7.5, 8 years ago to recommit my life to Christ. It just really started on that journey of, you know, becoming committed to him and having that relationship with him. And so much just unfolded in that time, just for me making that decision, just even healing through the divorce and just so many things that happened. Um, God was just in the midst of it. I remember one instance, my mom, because I dealt with anxiety and depression for so many years, over 20 something years. And I literally had probably tried like every medication there was at one time. I decided like in my late 30s I was just going to stop taking it. So going through the divorce, my mom was like, well, maybe you should just go to the doctor and get them to, just give you something to, help keep you calm. Cause I was working a full-time job. I was in school. And then my daughter was like 5 at the time.
Oh,
So it was a lot going on at the time. And I remember, I think, driving home one night from class, and I just said, "No, I'm going to let God show himself mighty in this situation.
wow.
And I'm not going to do that." And it was like, the heavens rejoiced when I said that. He was like, that's what I've been waiting to do. And the things that I used to, you know, suffer with, like panic attacks and migraines and things like that, like none of that ever happened. None of that ever happened. He just allowed me to literally just walk through, very difficult things. And it was like, it was literally like being in the cyclone of a tornado, but like everything was just going around, but there was just nothing hitting me. There was just nothing going on. And so at that moment, I was just like, okay, God, you really do, keep your promises. You really do, what you say that you're gonna do. And it just continued to increase from there. He just doesn't mean that things, got easier, but it was easier to go through
Yeah.
because he had continued to show himself faithful, just making that solid decision to just say, no, I'm going to let him do this. I'm going to let him, lead and guide. If I said, okay, God, I need you to do this, this is the situation, so
Mm.
you're going to have to do it. And he was like, okay, you know, it's done. I just need your faith. That's all. I just need you to believe, and say it with your mouth. So yeah, it's been in the last 7.5 to 8 years that I've walked with him.
I really love that because that takes a major level of faith and trust to go, God, I let go. I let you do it. And what I heard you say, there was so much that I heard you say, but in that moment was, uh, sorry if I get your words wrong, but God said, it's done. I'm doing it. It's done. And it just reminded me of Daniel when he started fasting and praying. It was already done. God
Yeah,
heard him, but there was just this battle going on. So he just continued to keep fasting. And
yeah,
then eventually the Gabriel, I think it was, came and let him know.
hmm,
We heard you straight away. You were heard. You were heard and it was done, but we went into battle for you. And it's just that beautiful knowing and reminder of when the words come out of our mouth. God, I'm done. I need you to do it. I need you to take it from here. I can't do it anymore.
yeah,
God's like, it's done. I'm on it. It's done. But we have to remain, we have to trust and rely on our faith,
yeah.
rely on Him, and that knowing that it is done. And even though it doesn't look like it in our circumstances, it's done.
It
It's
is.
all working behind the scenes. We can't always see what's going on. But yeah, do you have anything to add to that?
I just and I guess the thing for me that I always try to encourage, others, like you said, it may not look like it, because what we see in the natural is like, this just, okay, this really does not look like much of anything. But like you said, behind the scenes, there are so many moving parts and there's so many things that are happening for your good, that you may not realize. And the thing about it is that he can't give us everything at once, right? I mean, it has to be these small doses, things that God was doing in me at the time, like waking me up at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning, and I would be just writing. And it would, and I literally I could not go back to sleep until I finished whatever it was that he was saying. Those are things that now, here it is, 6 years later or more, like those are things that I use. Those are things I can go back and look at. Those are things that I can draw from as I continue on this journey, and this walk with him, there's a reason for everything, even in that waiting. You learn how to wait. There's, different levels, but you have to just be open to all of it. I spent a lot of time, by myself. So that meant I could spend a lot of time, in his presence. And we have to be open
Mm.
to those things. When you truly surrender, when you truly say, okay, I'm letting go of this, embrace what comes with that. He doesn't do anything to harm you.
Mm.
Everything is to help you. Everything is to make you better. It's to refine you, and anybody, to know that we have a father that's willing to say, okay, there's some things about you, even though you're my child and I really, really love you, there's some things about you that we need to work on, and you just have to embrace that. Now I can kind of make jokes about some of it, but how am I going to get to where he really needs for me to be if I don't allow him to continue to hold that mirror up? And then I can think about, those times. There are times that sometimes, not that you kind of long for that isolation. That was always like a word I would hear in my head, is just being so
Mm.
isolated, because I lived, in this house that had no central air and heat. I commuted to work every day. So I didn't, even though it was a place where I grew up, I didn't know anybody.
Wow.
So I was by myself, and so I would just say, just learn to embrace those times. We oftentimes just rush to something that we're not prepared for, and we need to learn to just be still and let him, take us through that process, because he's been wanting to do it for the longest time, but we've just been too busy doing it our own way to allow it to happen.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you for sharing. And I think there's something really sacred about a season of aloneness and
Mm,
singleness, and just allowing God into those spaces. Because I know this has been a season for me on my own. And there are days where I'm like, God, I'm so lonely, but I'm not alone.
yeah.
And it gets hard, yet I'm up to 2 years now on my own for the first time in my life. And
Wow.
I'm finally at the point now where I see it as such a blessing, because one day when God sends someone into my life, maybe I'll be like, oh, I wish that I endured that season better, because now I won't have it for the rest of my life. Praise God. But it's just like really learning to be on my own and to not look for other things to fill that space, but to look to my source, because
Absolutely.
no one else can feel what he's feeling at the moment. Nobody else can do that. Like, that's not a human level, that's supernatural. And the
Exactly.
healing,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah, the healing that goes into that time alone, if you allow it, it's so powerful, and you'll never be the same again.
Yes. And you won't. And I love what you said. It's like when God does bring that person into your life, you will, now don't get me wrong, I love my husband, but you value the time that you get to have that quiet time because of what you do give and what you do pour, as being a spouse. And so
Mm.
it's still just as valuable that, even though, I work from home, that time is still very sacred. And, I get to, spend time in worship, or just, have my own thoughts sometimes, or know how to handle situations, or just different things. And so that time that I did have by myself, it was definitely preparation. I didn't
Yeah.
realize, and I still think sometimes, just I'm like, God, you really did a great work in me, as far as how he healed me,
Yeah.
because, sometimes I think like if I had not been as healed as I was, like there is no way because we'd have been just, button heads. But it allowed me to have like a level of sensitivity and awareness to
Mm.
certain things, maybe not understanding everything, but because I had that time to myself, it
So,
it does help. And so yeah, you do enjoy it.
yeah.
Definitely enjoy it and let it be everything that God wants it to be. Because sometimes I think like I really should have probably enjoyed, you know, the time more. I don't regret being married by any means. I thank God for my husband. But I think I probably would have been um I think I probably would have been a little more intentional
Yeah.
in just really embracing it on a deeper level and what he was, because I think there was still part of me that, of course you still, you know, like you said, you're so lonely but I would tell anybody in their season of singleness, date yourself, get to know yourself. Because I realized like when I was single, I realized that I didn't have a voice. Like I didn't even realize what I thought and how I felt
Mm.
about certain things. And
Right.
I was appalled. And I was like in my mid 40s and I'm like, you don't even know how you feel, and it was shocking to
Yeah.
me that was, where I was at that age. And so that self-discovery of, no, this is how I feel about this. This is what I think about this. This is my viewpoint on this. And then articulating that
Mm.
was so liberating because I wouldn't be able to do the things that I do now, had I not had that time to,
Yeah.
you know, become Vanessa, because I was somebody's wife, I'm somebody's mom, which that's cool because when you're a mom, you don't have a name. You just don't. And so it was different to now be able to say that this is Vanessa and this is what
Wow.
Vanessa thinks and this is what Vanessa feels. And yeah, I'm somebody's mom too, but it's different and you
Yeah.
don't realize that when you're in it oftentimes. And I've heard a lot of women say like when they're in relationships or in marriages, they have kids and their whole life is revolved around the relationship or their children, and children grow up, go away. They really don't know who their spouse is. They don't
Yeah.
know who they are. So now they're kind of like, at the fork in the road and they don't know what to do. And we should never give that up, is the thing that I learned. But also, it has to be something that was demonstrated for you, too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That is so good. That is so good. A lot of people have not, particularly men, have not had that demonstrated.
Mm,
Very
mm-mm.
sad. And we're seeing the evidence and the fruits of that now.
Absolutely.
Vanessa, I love this. It says that you empower women to break free from limiting beliefs and embrace transformative mindsets. And you also confront generational curses. This is so powerful. What does this look like? How do you do this? Who are your clients? Ah, because this is so powerful. These are things that women need.
Yeah. Most of the women that have been my clients, first of all, I think my probably was my own client in the beginning.
Mm,
Um, because I realized in going through my own healing journey, which is still going on to this day, I realized that a lot of the things that I thought and that I felt were things that my mother taught me, which now don't get me wrong, I think my mother is one of the most amazing people on the face of the planet. And I understand that she did the best that she could with what she had, what she was taught. Her mother um, passed away when I think my mom was like in her early 20s. So she did not have a mother, for the majority of her life.
mm,
So I know, I later on in life, I understood this. So being single, I just realized there were a lot of things that I was taught growing up that I started to question. And I was like, well, why do I? And it was simple stuff like, so, but why do I have to change my sheets every Saturday morning? Why do I like it was just certain things. And like the thing that really stuck out the most for me, the story that I always tell, um, is I remember when my great uncle was killed in a car accident and my mom called me from the hospital. And this was like, I had to be like in my late 20s, early 30s. And she said, your uncle has died. She said, I need for you, bless you. She said, I need for you to be strong.
Wow.
So that, like, something in my brain in that moment just clicked. I don't know what it was.
Mm,
I'm still kind of trying to figure it out. So it was like anytime anything happened, there was no emotion. You didn't cry. You just went through it. And then when it was over, you just resumed, you went back to your regularly scheduled program.
mm,
So that's how that's just how it was, because that's what was demonstrated for me.
yep.
That's what I saw. So I felt like for most of my life, it served me pretty well. It did. I could get through things. I could be strong for myself and for other people. Well, going through this divorce, it was like everything had just fallen around, to me, fallen down around me. I never, imagine myself getting divorced. I had waited my whole life to get married. And
Wow.
so I just started kind of questioning certain things. And what I realized was this was like a learned behavior, and it was like really, really dysfunctional. And as I'm raising my daughter and I'm saying things to her like, it's okay, don't cry, it's okay, don't be upset, I had to stop that. Like I had to
Yeah.
course correct it. Like you are allowed to show emotion. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be upset.
Yeah.
I had to stop that because she was gonna become the very same thing. And that was bananas. I didn't want her to bottle up her emotions and not feel things and express how she felt. So there were times when I would be upset that she would see me cry. I want you to know it's okay. There's strength in your tears. That
Yeah.
just because you're crying doesn't mean that, it's just all gloom and doom and you're sad. And so that was what I saw for myself. And then as I got to meet other women and hear their stories and hear that some of it was kind of similar, and they knew that it wasn't right, but they didn't know how to break out of it. uh,
Mm,
I was able to just use my experience to try to encourage them and teach them that there is a different way that you can live your life. And they were ready. That's the other really important thing, Dr. Angela.
yeah.
They were ready to make a change
Yeah.
in their life. They were ready to do something different. They were sick and tired of being sick and tired. And they just needed the guidance. They just needed, to know how to, walk through the process. And so from
So
there,
good.
that was how, I started coaching individuals on how to break those generational curses, how to look at their life and see that even though, yeah, these things have happened, they are making you who you are. That it's not, yeah, it might not have been pleasant, but
Mm,
it's not happening to you, which I know for a lot of us that's really hard to grasp a hold of, especially when we think of like the bad things that have happened in our lives.
mm,
And so they would see that as they are focusing on transforming the way that they think about things and the way that they talk about stuff, the things that they came to me for that they wanted to accomplish, they're accomplishing those things, but they're working on their insides. They're
Wow.
working on their heart. They're working on, their mindset. They're working on, their relationship with themselves. I had to learn to have a relationship with myself. I wasn't taught what that was like.
Yeah.
I wasn't shown what it was like to have a relationship with myself, to really like myself, love myself, do nice things for myself, just spend alone time with my own thoughts. And so then I've been able to teach other women and encourage other women and empower other women on how to do that and what it looks like, and that it's a journey. It's not like you do it for 6 months and you're good for the rest of your life. Like, it's regular maintenance. It's a regular maintenance. But I try to teach women that it's more than just what we do to our outside, because,
Yeah.
we spend a lot of time, makeup, hair, nail, we do all of the exterior stuff,
Yeah.
try to cover up what's going on the inside. But if we start with the inside, you'll find that you need less of, the outside stuff that
Hmm.
we do, even though, we like the outside stuff because we're girls,
Yeah.
but if we can really do that work on our insides, that's what people are going to be drawn to, and they're not going to care. Like, I tell people, I intentionally, do a lot of my TikToks without makeup. That's on purpose, unless it just happens to be a Sunday. But most of the time, it's without makeup. That's on purpose, because it's not, for me, it's not about that. It's about the message that God has given me to share. And I'm not going to spend 30 to 45 minutes doing makeup for a 3-minute video. I need you to get the message. That's
Yeah.
more important. What I look like is
Love.
inconsequential at that point. So I had to do it for myself first. And I had, some good people along the way. But it really was that time with God for him to really show me, who I am, and the value that I had, what I had to offer
Yeah.
to others.
So good. That reminds me, when I hear people say don't cry, it makes me cringe. It's and it as we were talking about it, it reminded me of a moment with my granddaughter. She
Mm,
was in the back of the car. I was driving, and I had picked her up from her mum and dad, and she was crying, and she's like, I just want to stay with them. And I just said, it's okay, get all your tears out, because they were at an event and she'd spent some
mm,
time there, and it was time for her to come home and have dinner and go to bed. So I picked her up and I'm like, it's okay. Just cry all you need to cry. Get all those tears out. I understand. And it was, I think it was a bit of a shock to her system. Now she's 3, but it lasted about 30 seconds.
mhm.
And I felt so good with the words that came out of my mouth, because it was so liberating and empowering to her. I'd never had this experience before, and something in me just said, tell her to just let the tears out and it's okay. And I was like,
Mhm.
okay. And I was like, wow, that was really powerful. What
Yeah,
a difference that made to allow her to express how she felt so she can understand it. She's 3, but teach her, understand what you're feeling, sit in it, feel it, and be okay with it. And then what's next?
exactly.
Rather than being told, like I was, to shut it all down, suppress it, and be strong, like you were told,
Mhm.
and move forward. Because it's not, feelings are for feeling. They are emotions. It's okay to be able to feel whatever it is that you're feeling, so we can then articulate it to why we're feeling it and then process it. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's so powerful.
Yeah, it's important, and we have to teach them young, because, like you said, we teach them to feel it, make sense of it, and so the next time it happens, you know how to properly, deal with it, put it in its proper place.
Mm.
And we have to, be able to teach that, because how else are we going to have a generation of, prophets, pastors, teachers, evangelists? How, they have to be sensitive to the Holy Spirit. If
Yeah.
we're suppressing everything, then how are we going to have that empathy and compassion? We know, and then we know the moments when we need to rise up. We'll understand through discernment and wisdom. Okay, this is a moment where I'm going to have to stand up and be present and show up. But
Mm.
that doesn't mean that I can't go later on. And if I have to have a little mini meltdown, that it's okay. Or if I got to have a little mini meltdown before the thing and show up, like I'm allowed to feel that.
Yeah.
And I'm allowed to have that moment and just say, okay, so you've had it.
Mm.
Like you said, now what? We got to move on. We can't just stay here. And I think that's, if you're not careful, a lot of times that's how we get into those patterns. The depression or the anxiety and panic attacks, and I'm not making light of that, because I've had it all. I didn't understand how I could be depressed and have anxiety at the same time. I don't know how you care so much but don't care at all. But I used to,
Wow.
that was how my brain, I used to function. I could shut it down, be professional for 5 days a week, 40 plus hours, and then not, and cry on Sundays because I had to get up and pretend to do it. So it happens. It can happen, and it's not healthy. It is
Mm.
not healthy. So the younger that we can teach them how to do that, and how to process their feelings, I think it makes you to have more articulate, more sensitive, more compassionate young people that can go out and truly have impact in the world, like we need for them to have, as opposed to teaching them to just shut it down, and they're bottling up all this anger
Yeah.
and bitterness on the inside, and then we don't know how that's going to come out, if it's going to be rage, or if they're going to, truly suffer from depression, learning disabilities. Like, we don't, that all these things can be
Mm.
so detrimental if we're not careful with how we teach, our young people. So if we can break that, we've got to start with ourselves. If we break that in ourselves, when we have our children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, we can help to break that stereotype and that mindset.
Yeah. That's so powerful. So, talking about generational curses, because I love this kind of thing. I love. Are you referring to deliverance and things like that? What are you referring to when you talk about generational curses?
When I talk about generational curses, for me, it's making that decision that, yeah, you're going to be delivered from doing this thing this type of way, thinking this type of way, no longer allowing what other people have said,
Okay.
done, to control the life that God has given you. That even though you may have been, born into this family, even though this thing or these things may have happened to you, that does not dictate the end of your story. That's not the end of your story. You have the opportunity. Just because no one else in your family went to college does not mean that that's your story. You can be the generational curse breaker and be the first college graduate. You can go and get
Mm.
your master's. You can go and get your doctorate. Just because, the women in your family may have, through you finding out, been in abusive marriages, that does not mean that you are doomed and destined to, have the same story. You can make the decision that you're going to make better choices in spouses. You're going to seek the Lord. You're going to get that wisdom and discernment. You're going to wait patiently on Him, and that and undeniably, when God brings Him, then you can break that curse. and that your children will grow up, and so it's making some choices and decisions within yourself that you see that this is what this is, but I am no longer going to, this does not have to be my story. This does not have to be the way that I live my life. I had to make a decision. You know what? I'm breaking the curse. We are not going to be walking around here not feeling what we feel and saying what we feel. We're going to talk about it, and then we can move on from it. And so for me, that's what I mean when I say that. And each person that I've ever coached or had a conversation with, they know what that thing is for them, even if it's just a mindset that they don't want to live in this neighborhood anymore. They don't want to live in this city anymore. And people have opinions and those types of things, because I want better for myself. Teaching women not to be afraid to want something different or something better for themselves. When I made a decision to, move out of state, I'm sure there were probably a lot of oohs and ahs. I didn't understand completely myself, but I knew I had to obey God and do it. And now I can see the benefits and the fruits of it. We have to do some things sometimes that may not make sense to other people, but this is not their life.
Yeah.
And so I get to, with the help of God, make different choices and decisions to no longer, do the things that you may have done. That's fine. That worked for you. That was, if that's
Yeah.
the ceiling for you, that's fine. That's not the ceiling for me in my mind, you know. And so that, for me, that's what I mean. Just, and like you said, being delivered from just, certain mindsets, not having
Mm.
a mindset of, just thinking in a certain way because this is what I've just always been taught or what's always been said. No, there's more out there. Learning to be open minded, not being afraid. My mom makes a joke. She was like, "You really love being in school." I guess I kind of do, but then I kind of got that from you, because she was an educator. So,
Well,
um, it's just certain things that you may hear people may say, and it becomes it becomes a part of you if you're not careful. And so what you find is, subtly but surely, now you kind of like contributing to the curse. And I don't know, we might not necessarily look at it like that, but that's kind of what ends up happening. If I had never taught my daughter that it was okay to cry, we would still be, she would be doing the same thing.
yeah.
And that, so then
Okay.
my opportunity, I would have missed that opportunity to break that. So now that's a broken thing. And I pray that she continue it should she decide to have children. So it's just teaching, women are taught, we're nurturers and we're soft and we build up and we love, but so there's a certain strength that we have. And I think more often than not, we're we have to show that side more than we get to show that softer side,
Mhm.
just society and, things that have happened, the experiences that we've had. And so we kind of start to develop this little bit of a hardened heart when it comes to certain things. And so we just have to be mindful of those things because that starts something that, if we're not careful, that becomes a pattern, that becomes, now this is how I operate. So those are the kind of people you connect to, or you have relationships with, or you are attached to, and it just continues. And that can be just really, really dangerous.
Yeah. There's a story that keeps coming to mind about this type of thing. There was a woman who cooked a roast every Sunday. Her mum did, her grandmother did, and so now she does, and they always cut the end off the chicken. And one day she's roasting her food and cut the end of the chicken, and then she looked at her mum and she said, "Why do you cut the end of the chicken?" She goes, because it didn't fit in the pan. And so it's like she did this certain thing, cutting the end off the chicken because it didn't fit into the pan, but the daughter took it on. It had been come down through generations, and the daughter took it on and did the same behavior, not knowing that it was just because her pan wasn't big enough and she couldn't afford another one.
Ooh, wee. That's a whole message right there. Your pan is big enough.
Yeah, you're what?
Your pan is big enough.
Your pan is big enough.
Wow, that was
And
good.
yeah, I know it kept coming at me. I'm like, oh, I'm just going to tell you. And yeah, let someone else's ceiling be your dance floor.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And that's why it's so important to be around people. You know, you have to open yourself up to being around different people and having different experiences. Because if you never had that, because people all they've ever talked about is their ceiling, and no, you can't, if you peep out the window, it's dangerous. You can't do that. And so if you never say, but why?
Yeah.
Well, how come I can't? Well, how come I can't? Why do I have to? So you just go find out.
Yeah.
It's you just, like you said, you let somebody's ceiling be your dance floor. Like, what's the harm?
Yeah.
What's the worst that could happen? But a lot of it, I really believe, I understand that, for generations, that just may have been the way that it was, having to work, having to do, certain things to take care of the family. And I understand that. But also, I just think about, you know, how many missed opportunities do people just they don't get to take advantage of because that fear,
Yeah.
if I don't do it this way, then I'll let my family down, or I'm not properly taking care of my family. How
Mm.
much of what we were taught, what we were told, was just hugely fear-based.
Wow.
Just the lack of knowledge, absolutely lack of experience, but just also fear-based. Like, no, you can't do, just no. And of course, we never questioned, our elders as
Yeah.
to why. Really, it was just you work hard, you take care, it was just the basic things.
Yeah.
But why can't I do this? Like, why
Mm.
why why can't I do this and that? you know
I love
why
that.
can't I do this, that, and this?
That's right.
And so they're honestly not going to have an answer, because it's not been done. But if you try to do, so it's amazing. I found out how much fear has played such a humongous role in us not going for things,
Yeah.
seeking out opportunities, or taking advantage of, certain opportunities.
Hmm.
And just, if it's not. But how much have we let what we've been taught or been told, probably more than anything,
Yeah.
keep us from possibly, really experiencing some amazing things,
So good. So true.
or cutting off the chicken.
Yeah. You're just making life harder for yourself,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
Vanessa, you're the founder of Emerge Her Outreach Ministries,
Mhm.
which fosters healing and elevation in women's lives. Can you just tell us quickly about this? And you also, because I love this, and you also have a book
Mhm.
that you can let us know about, and then we'll say goodbye.
Sad. No. So a couple of years ago, a lot of stuff I realized, I try to really be obedient, that when God gives me stuff, I just try to write it down. Even if it's like I just make a note in my phone, my notes, I've just got tons of notes. So a couple of years ago, he had given me the word emerge her. And I was like, okay, what are we going to do with that? I'll just type it in my phone and we'll just, whenever you say, okay. So, there would be times that I would just kind of play around in Canva, because that's like one of my favorite things to do. I just play around in Canva. And one day I just like had created a logo and it just sat there forever. And so close to the end of last year, he was like, remember that thing that I said, a couple of years ago? I need you to start a group. I was like, do what? And I was just like, but I don't want to. I don't want to. I don't. I don't want to do a group. I don't want to be, it's like, just let me do. I already did the other stuff you asked me to do. So, needless to say, I lost the argument before I realized that I had started the group. It's a group on Facebook, and basically, there we are in the group, and I just encourage the women every day. There's whatever God gives me. I just encourage them every day. Every Wednesday morning, we do prayer. I go live on StreamYard. He gives me a topic. We talk about it for a little while, gives me scripture, whatever, however he drives the bus, we just ride with him. This morning, I literally had the scripture in the title, and he just like put his foot on the gas. I was like, this is really what you do?
Wow.
So it has really just turned into a community of women that are desiring to grow. There are some women that are very seasoned. There are some that are like right in the middle in their walk. There are some that are new. Um, and so as he gives me things to encourage them, I just encourage them, because I try to give people what I wasn't given, until later in life. And I'm grateful for that. So I just try to show up for women in that way, let them know they're doing a great job. Hey, it's okay if you didn't have a great day. Just take a moment to just be mindful, to be grateful today. So, and just hopefully help to push them as they continue their journey and their walk with God and their healing process. And out of that, he pushed me a little further. In June, we're having our first conference. I really did not want to do that at all. I'm still trying to make sure that that's what I heard, but I heard him say it. So that's another fight that I lost too. So I'm excited about that. So he's really pushed me in some very uncomfortable ways and uncomfortable places, but I also know that he's called me to women, and I have a heart for women. And I just have a heart to see them just grow into being the best versions of themselves, because I know that we all have something that somebody needs. It may be in different capacities. You might not have a podcast, you might not write a book, but if you are the person on your job that God shines through, then I want to encourage you to be the best version of that, so that you can show up and let God shine and arise in you for those people. And so that's really what it's about, is helping women just develop what they know is already on the inside of them, and letting the world see, and letting God just have his way in expressing it here in the earth. That's what Emerge Her is about. So it's a daily water walk for me with that, because how it is when you start anything, you're just kind of like, this ain't it, God. Like, this is.
Yes, I do.
But I love it, and I love the women. I love just their heart for just desiring to want more. And just being that space. For me, it's the quality, it's not the quantity. I'm not concerned with just trying to, I want to make sure that it's having impact. Impact is one of my words for the year. So what I care about is making sure that it's having impact, and helping them to grow and forcing them to really make some change in their life. Um, my book, The Butterfly Emerges, The Journey to a Transformed Mindset and a Transformed Life, came out a couple of years ago. It started actually as a blog. Well, no, it actually started when I was just writing things on Instagram and posting them. And then he made me like start sharing stuff on Facebook, another fight that I lost because I didn't want to do it during the pandemic. I didn't want to do it. And so then I started a blog. So one of my accountability partners, because I had gone through a life coaching class at church, she was like, "You could so write a book from this." And I was like,
Mm.
"You gotta be kidding." And she was like, "No, you could." So my first endeavor was being a part of an anthology, the Coaches Connect. That was the first thing, was writing that chapter. So I just eventually just sat down. I was like, you can do this." So I wrote my first book. And it's a compilation of blogs that I've written, prayers that I've written. And it also gives the reader an opportunity to just reflect on what they've read. It's based on the 4 stages of a butterfly, because no matter what age or what stage you are, you're gonna go back to the egg stage at some point. Just because we break out of the cocoon and fly off, that is not the end of the story. Because I found out at 40 something years old that I was right back in the egg stage going through a divorce.
Oof.
So that was part of, reflecting on all of that. And so looking at all of those things, that's then also how the book came to be. And I share some stories from my experiences. That was another thing that he had to get me out of my comfort zone on too, was just being willing to share, my story, my experiences, and how it applied to, that particular season. So that's what the book about. I wanted it to be a tool that people could use, that they could always go back to, when faced with something, to just say, okay, am I like in the cocoon, or have I, where am I, at this stage in my life? So I really wanted to make sure that it was a tool that people could use no matter what they had going on, or what,
Mm.
or to stop and figure out, this is where I am.
That's so powerful because life does throw us curveballs sometimes. And it's like, I'm not going to speak for anybody else, but I know for me, it's like I didn't expect to be here at this point of my life at this age. How do I
Yes.
now move forward in this one? Or what do I do with this? Or how did I revert back to this? Or how do I move out of this stage for the first time? Because it's foreign. Because a lot of the time we experience things and we haven't experienced it before.
Mhm.
I don't know if you heard that. Sorry,
It's
my
okay.
neighbor.
It's always something. It's okay.
My neighbor has a gorgeous Harley Davidson, but like that was really loud.
That's okay.
Yeah, so your book is really necessary. So
Yeah.
thank
Because I
you
realized
for
there was no type of, I didn't have friends that could help me to navigate it,
mm,
and it was a part of that healing journey of, being by myself and him talking to me and showing me how to walk through it. So I wanted to be able to just put it together so that it would be something. So whether you're, 25 or 35 or 45 or 55 or 65, and you get thrown that curveball in life, know that like you can go back to the egg stage and it's okay. There's
exactly.
nothing wrong with it. I think there's also like this shame, or there's nothing wrong with that. We probably have repeated it more than we, if we really stop to think, we've probably repeated it more than we kept count of
Mm,
it. But to just acknowledge it, and I was seeing it, in just in other individuals, I could hear it when they would talk, and I'm like, this feels and sounds really familiar. So just to be able to have something that when you sit and read it, you can just say, okay, that makes sense. Now I
mm,
understand. And I'm not saying it has all the answers and solutions, but I
mm,
believe that it's something that's relatable to some, degree to where people can hopefully see, some of themselves and just help them to kind of navigate, through that. It's not a long read, it's not painfully long. I think it's like 80 something pages. So, I mean, it's, I wanted to make it easy to go through and navigate.
And you said something interesting. There's nothing wrong with it. And there's also nothing wrong with you.
Yes, absolutely. I don't care what anybody has said. I don't care what has happened. There's nothing wrong with you. God made you the way he made you, on purpose, with purpose, for purpose. It's just our job at that point to just figure out what that is. Even though we've taken missteps, even though we've made some not so good choices, even though we've made some wrong turns, here's the thing. He already knew we were going to do that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just us coming into alignment with who he says that we are and who he made us to be. There's nothing wrong with you. Because to say that there's something wrong with you, I love that you said that. To say that there's something wrong with you mean there's something wrong with him.
Oh, come on.
So we might want to think about that when we say that, or when somebody tries to say that to us, because then I'm like, well, then you don't know who my father is.
Yeah.
Because he's your father too. So that means not only is there something wrong with me, there's something wrong with you. And, so it's like, gotta really be careful. Words are so powerful. So it's amazing how we absorb them and take them in and let what somebody says really make us feel like there is something wrong with us. Like there is something really off. And to them, it may look like that, but that's exactly how God made us to be. So what may be unusual, because the Bible tells me that I'm a peculiar person.
Come on.
So you might be kind of right. There's nothing wrong with me. It's just very right. And it's just not familiar to you. So but you have to get into a place to where you know that about yourself and whose you are, that you can have that type of mindset, and that, I'm a kind of a smart mouth. So then I can kind of have that kind of rebuttal, to make you think about what you said, and it's not to be ugly, but it's just, just be mindful of what you're saying. No, it's actually very right with me. He made me like this. For you, it may be irritating something in you, that spirit in you, but it's dead on for his glory.
Come on, sis.
What he needs me to do. So take that. I don't know. I'm talking trash now.
Welcome to that. I love the word mindful, and I know we have to wrap up because we're running out of time. We have run out of time, but the word mindful for me has been playing on my mind lately, because as you know, we've discussed, you and I are both word girls. And who are you, the Bible verse, who are you that you are mindful of me? Mindful, full of mind. I am fully in his mind. His mind is full of me.
Yes.
And I'm like, what?
Isn't that amazing?
No.
Isn't that amazing?
Who am I that you are mindful of me? And you said be mindful of your words, and I completely agree with you. Be so intentional with your words and so careful about what you allow to fall out of your mouth, because there is life and death in the tongue.
Absolutely.
Follow Angela on Facebook and LinkedIn at Angela Bennett, on Instagram at AngieB_transformations, or visit angieb.com.au. And remember, your past does not define you, it refines you.